Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ball is Round. I'm your host today, Hady Raphael, and today on the show, Nancy leaves Saputo Stadium with 3 points and an intense battle for playoff spot. That and a lot more on episode 147 of your favorite show. And I am joined here tonight by my two colleagues, my two friends, Eve Powell and Elias Grigoriadis. Hey guys, how are you today?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm fine, I'm fine. Elias, I don't know if you are aware, but you're on mute today. So I'm not sure
Mute.
if you
I
are.
am.
Now
I
you're
am
not.
on mute. I was just making sure that you were paying attention. That's why I was on mute.
I'm always paying attention, my friend. Always, always. I'm like a hawk, right? So, what's going on? How was your weekend? A long weekend, Eve. I hope that you're not too annoyed by the heat and the warmth in
I
Montreal.
got my air conditioner going, so for anyone wondering why there's a gaping chasm behind me and my shoulder, it's I have to keep my bedroom open so that some of the cool air can waft in there.
No worries at all. We can't hear it either way. And Elias, I suppose that you're pretty happy. Barcelona won, so I think you're satisfied, right?
Yeah, it's great. Only one of the two teams I watched got screwed over because of VAR. Not both of them for once. So
Oh wow.
that's
Oh wow. Okay, you're studying
Harsh,
the
harsh.
episode very, very okay. Okay.
Okay.
no,
We're
it was
gonna have
good.
some nice
They
discussions today.
winning away at Osasuna is never easy. So I'm happy for that. And, well, for the other team, we're about to get into it. So
Exactly. Let's wait and see. Hey, Patrick. He says hi, Patrick, and a lot of our listeners are tuned in. Thanks for being here with us as usual. So let's start talking about that game that we were really waiting for: the return of Wilfried Nancy to Montreal, to the Stade Saputo, with of course Rudy Camacho and of course the rest of the staff of Wilfried Nancy that joined him in Columbus. I don't remember all the names, but three of them that
Mhm.
followed Wilfried Nazi in Columbus. Um, at the same time, CF Montreal was coming off a heavy as in not very heavy in scoreline, but heavy as in they didn't really show
Ugly.
anything, and ugly. We didn't show anything in New York City FC where they lost 2-0. So Hernando Zada wanted to prove something, had to prove something at home. And this is the lineup that he presented before that game
Yes.
against
Just
the
give me
crew
a
of
moment.
Columbus.
It's coming.
So in goal, we have Jonathan Sirois that was there as usual. As a right wing back, Zakaria Bogia. We all know that Aaron Herrera is injured right now. And here's a surprise. As a right center back, we had Usman Jabang for his first start in his professional career in MLS. In the middle of the back three, we had George Campbell. And on the left, Gabriele Corbo as a left center back. As a left wing back, we had Mathieu Chouanière that was here. In the middle of the pitch, we had Samuel Piet and Nathan Saliba. Bryce Duke as a number 10. And up front, we had a duo of Lassi Lapalainen and Mahala Opoku. You look at that starting 11, guys. We were in a buffet room, Elias and me, before the game. I don't know how to call it, but whatever. We were
I
eating
call it the cafeteria. Yeah.
it's not really a cafeteria. You have like such a large choice of food, so whatever. Yeah, so so we were there, and we heard that Joel Waterman was injured. The choice of Usman Jabang was pretty surprising, right, Elias?
Yeah, I mean, when you consider that Rudy Camacho is gone, and then Robert Torkelson may not necessarily be in the favor, and then we found out that he was also injured with he also out with an adductor injury, and maybe Julian Alvarez is not 100% ready. You kind of your options are starting to narrow down. So the last one there was Usman Jabang, who's been at least with the group since the beginning of the season. Maybe I know Sada wants that bit of extra familiarity, but Yeah, I mean he's been working hard, and I think he deserves a start at some point. It's unfortunate that his first start was against one of the best offenses in MLS.
Yeah, I understand. Now, when you were in the stands, Eve,
Mhm.
what was your reaction when you saw that starting 11?
Confusion. Confusion. Yeah.
In what
You
way?
know,
In what way?
well, obviously, I don't think it was a very common knowledge that Joel Waterman was
No,
injured.
no.
So that was definitely confusing not to see him, even on the bench, because I don't think that information came out publicly before the match. So definitely seeing Usman Jabang start was a surprise. I don't even think Joel Waterman was listed on like the MLS's injury report. If I'm not,
Game
Oh,
notes,
no, no. He got,
Montreal game notes, but it was last minute. It was very
yeah, it
last
was
minute.
yeah,
last
it
minute.
was very, very last minute.
Yeah. As well as seeing Lassie playing as a number 10, obviously that meant that, and that, like, I was really confused by that, basically until we saw the team line up to kick off. And even that was weird because they kicked off at what I consider the wrong end of the stadium. Um, Seeing Lassie playing, as a supporting striker was also quite strange. Obviously left wing back is a hot potato of a position. So I was really confused if he was trying to slot in somewhere and push Bryce Duke up higher, if Mathieu Choinière was actually going to be playing and supporting Bryce Duke in some capacity, like in the midfield. And Lassie was on the left, and lo and behold, he started up top as a supporting striker. So yeah, I can imagine Wilfred Nancy was probably surprised too.
You know what? I was surprised that Chabang got his start.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering who was going to be in the middle of
Yeah.
the back three, and it was George Campbell, and
Yeah.
wasn't too pleased to see that in the first second of the game. And of course, we'll talk about it a bit later.
Yeah.
And that's something that I told you, Elias, when we were in just before the game. Like, I hope that he's not going to be in the middle because it's not his position. And
No,
yeah,
we've seen it. Like,
we've
it's
seen it
not as though he was.
exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing, is we saw it and we knew it didn't work. But
Yeah,
anyway.
but you know what? I liked the duo of Lassie and Opoku up front. The reason behind it is that you need you need to have someone that plays behind the defense. We all know with Rignacy's way of playing is very offensive. There's a lot of space behind the defense most of the time. So you needed someone that's quick, very, very quick to play behind the defense. And, Nasi was the right choice. Unfortunately, we don't have any other profile that can play that game. Lassie is the only one because Mahala Opoku, we thought that he was going to play more, play behind the defense. But most of the time, he just comes back, brings the ball up and everything. So it's not really his game. So no, I like the process, the decision process that the staff of CF Montreal took. But unfortunately, it didn't really work out. Let's take a look at what happened during that game. So at first, CF Montreal was doing pretty well. We had a small chance from Zachary Bogia at the other end. There was a big, let's say, a big scare with
Mm-hmm.
Christian Ramirez, having the ball and picking the ball and thank God missing the target. And that's on the 14th minute, and that's exactly what happened. There was so much pressure from Columbus that Yeboah got the ball in the middle of the pitch. He was supposed to be the left wing back, but found himself in the middle of the pitch, gave the ball to Gressel. Gressel, with one of those crosses that we all know him for, crosses the ball in the middle of the box, and Gabriel Corbo unfortunately cuts the ball, and it comes and it's in the back of the net of our friend Jonathan Sirois. Looking at the first 14 minutes, Eve, do you
Mm-hmm.
think that lead was deserved for the crew of Columbus?
Hard to say. Thinking about it, there wasn't the whole heck of a lot to split the two teams in the first, let's say, 15 minutes, just for the sake of like a round-ish number. There wasn't a whole lot to separate the teams. Montreal did have, like you said, that quick look at goal early on in the match, but I don't know. It was almost like, for me, when the Crew had the ball and they were going forward, it was almost like the atmosphere of the attack, like it changed so much compared to when Montreal had the ball and was trying to go forward with it. Like, it felt so much more purposeful, and a little bit less chaotic, and a little less maybe confused and disorganized. It felt very much like they were a well-oiled, well-drilled machine. And so, yeah, if I had to edge a team, in that opening stage up to the first goal, I would say maybe narrowly Columbus did look better.
Okay, Elias, there's something that was very surprising. We talked about Hernan Losada at the beginning of the year, and we all thought that we were going to see a very high press right up, like very, very high with the team, with the block being constantly up in the opponent's half. And we haven't seen that since the beginning of the season until Saturday night, where we saw a very high press from Hernan Losada. What did you think about that? Was it the right tactic against a team of Wilfried Nancy?
With Lassie on the field, and I think that Hernan Losada was probably figuring that Lassie would not be able to put in a full 90. When he does play with energy, he does it very well, and I think him kind of leading that press as the foremost player was a good idea, because look, at the end of the day, Wilfried Nancy loves to play with the ball, but like you said, his players are extremely vulnerable if possessions turned over quickly. So I think that it was a reasonable gambit, especially you're playing at home. You have the support of the crowd. You have that extra boost of energy that we've seen Montreal have so often. So I don't think that was too surprising. I think I was maybe surprised by how much more they pressed than usual, but I wasn't too surprised to see them, a bit more assertive. And it almost paid off a couple of times in the first half, and we'll get to it later. In the second half, it did actually pay off, but it looked to be a very good way to start off the game and kind of impose your own tempo.
Exactly, and I think it was the right move because, as you said, against Wilfried Nancy, when the ball is turned over, it's always very, very dangerous. So, and that's exactly what Montreal was trying to provoke, and they were able to provoke it quite a few times. Unfortunately, we didn't have that efficiency up front, to score goals as much as we wanted to.
That's
But
being
that
so
goal,
generous.
but it's true. Lassie got
It's
a
true.
couple of half chances because they weren't chances because he couldn't do anything with the ball, unfortunately, offensively. Uh, if we had someone that was a bit more efficient up front, we would have had maybe a better result at the end of the game. But unfortunately,
Mm.
that's not what we have in our squad. But you know what? I thought that the first goal for Columbus was a bit lucky because, like you said a bit, Eve,
Hmm.
we didn't know who was dominating it. There wasn't a name. There wasn't a team that was clearly dominating the other,
No.
and that own goal came and in a way just stopped CF Montreal in their game. Like
I think it seemed very demoralizing.
it was. It was. And I think it was demoralizing also for the crowd because we weren't expecting
Hmm.
that. Because even the cross of Gressel wasn't really, it was, of course, a great cross, but
Yeah.
wasn't really dangerous. That wasn't, you know, I wasn't even sure that it was going to fall to a crew forward. But unfortunately, there
I
was.
kind of think it would have, like, because Campbell was well far behind, so I think it would have. He was well far behind the other striker.
Really?
There were two
Why?
strikers coming in. Yeah.
On
Um,
that play, I think he was even. On the
Yeah,
other
no,
in,
one.
maybe you're thinking
in
of
the
the third
first goal,
goal. No, the first goal, Campbell was maybe a yard behind. There were two attacking players for Columbus rushing in.
the
So
target was offside though. I forget if it was Cucho or not, but he was offside.
Yeah.
I was so obsessed with some other offside call. He might have been offside, that you might have been right. But either way, I think I could see where Corbo would have maybe felt the pressure to get on that ball because he was sort of the nearest defender who could have a meaningful impact on it because, George Campbell isn't the quickest, and obviously Jabang was too far over on the pitch. Yeah, there might have been a question of offside if Corbo hadn't gone for it, but either way, obviously it's a moot point And you know how I feel about those low crosses deep across the 6-yard box. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't as a defender.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me,
Exactly.
I was like, oh, it's one of those crosses.
Yeah, but we can't really blame Gabriel Corbo. I think he was one of the best players. He is one of the best players of Montreal this season. As simple as that. Yep. If not the best player. So I don't want to really blame him. This is something that happens, unfortunately, for defenders. So 1-0 for the Columbus Crew. A few minutes later, there was a foul just on top of the box from CF Montreal, and Cucho Hernandez got the free kick. It was right over the bar. It wasn't that far away from being on target, right, Elias? Did you get that messy vibe?
No, I mean, I always get bad vibes when another team has when opponent team has a free kick in around the box. I just it's a little bit of pessimism that sticks out. It goes, oh, this is top ends. There's no stopping it. But it was a good free kick. Getting it up and over the wall and then down again is never easy from that close. So it was a good effort, but I think that it was always going over. So I think Jonathan Sirois kind of reacted accordingly.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. On the 22nd minute, that's when I was going to say Giuseppe Rossi. Diego Rossi received the ball on the left flank. Unfortunately, Ousmane Jabang wasn't really
didn't really press him or close him down.
He tried his best, but it was hard because it's still Diego Rossi up front, right?
He's extremely talented.
He's very skilled, right? So he was able to get his cross in, and then Cucho Hernandez completely free in the box with a very simple header, and it's 2-0. Who's the culprit, Eve, in the defense? Because I've seen a lot of people, pointing their fingers at Piet, others at other players, and who's the culprit? Because it's not normal that Cucho was completely alone in a box.
I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know who was tasked with, say, keeping an eye on him, because there was another, at least one more Crew player already positioned there in the box, right? At the time of the cross. So I would assume that it looked as though Gabriel Corbo was trying to keep his eyes on the player who was in the box, and maybe it was a collective misunderstanding between, a lack of communication between, say, I think it was Chouanière, who was the next closest, along with Piet. Campbell, I think there was a third player who had come in, and I think Campbell was kind of marking, I guess, or following him. Really, really hard to say. I will say, I think the run was impeccably timed by Hernandez. I think it was a very, very well taken header, very clinical finish. Like I said, excellent timing. For me, it's hard to put my finger at one player. I think there might have been a lack of communication overall, just because there were a few players in the vicinity with nobody really looking like they were going to take responsibility.
And if you take a look at that, Elias, you clearly see that, of course, you have Corbo taking his player. You have George Campbell that was on the first post, which is completely normal. So he was well placed. And unfortunately, you see Mathieu Chouanière on the back post, but
not really doing anything.
Not really doing anything. He wasn't in a very dangerous area. And Samuel Piet leaves the marking of Hernandez, or nobody marks Hernandez. Piet doesn't even communicate to Chouanière, saying, you know what, hey, be careful. There's a player coming in the box. For me, it was a lack of communication. Do you agree with me, Elias? Because we can't really point our fingers to someone in particular. But I think Piet should have maybe communicated the fact that there's a danger inside of the area, and Mathieu Chouanière should have reacted. So for me, it's a bit of the mistake of both of them. Or do you see anything else?
No, it was really a team effort in that respect. I think that, Samuel Piet has a job of handing off his mark to someone if he's going to stay at the top of the box, like most defensive midfielders do. But at the same time, Mathieu Chouanière isn't marking anyone, but has a view of everything. So he also has to recognize that somebody has to tell Gabriel Corbo, who was handing off that decoy run to George Campbell, someone has to tell him that there's somebody behind him, because you could tell he didn't even contest the header. He didn't jump. He just kind of looked at
No,
it, right? Because
no,
he saw
no.
that he saw his runner go in front of him, and the ball was clearly going over him. So like, okay, my job is done because nobody told him there was somebody behind him. So you could tell by the way everyone was just standing looking at each other after the goal that everyone just kind of assumed the other would mark him, and then that's it's that's not that's not indicative of the level they're playing. You're expecting much more organized and much more communicative, and it wasn't that. So all around, just a group effort and defensive failure.
In the post game presser, Elias Hernandez had said that the fact that they were doing a high press that left them really exposed defensively, and he
Mm-hmm.
said that yes, we had to take that risk, but at the same time, the best thing that really is our force is our defensive organization, which is
Mhm.
weird coming from a team that conceded so many goals. What do you
And
think
so many
about that?
chances on top of the goals.
Exactly. Exactly. What do you think about that answer from Hernandez Sada saying that it was because we were pressing very high that our defense was really not as good as it was before?
Had he said at home, I would have believed him because of how good Montreal is at home, and I think they've conceded more goals in this game at home than they did, the rest of the season combined, at least in the regular season. Um, so there's that, but on top of that, I think he's right. I think that this is not new, but this is a press that they haven't used that much in game, except for when they're trailing, and the other team is in a low block. They have not played this kind of press against a team that is as open and as free flowing as Columbus. That doesn't excuse the fact that, if you look at every goal, we talk about the penalty after, and that's a different conversation. But look at all three goals in the first half, and they're rudimentary defensive mistakes, right? They're
No.
defensive mistakes that, yes, have to do with organization, but at the end of the day, it's not like this is some high level tactical defense that you only see at the professional level. This is the stuff you learn as a beginner,
Mhm.
right? It's tracking
Yeah,
runs,
I
it's
agree.
covering your
Yep.
back, it's covering other people's back. It's really not that intense. So from that respect, I understand why Losada said it, and I agree with him in that part. And I think that when we look at them as isolated cases, yeah, those are goals that 8 times out of 10 don't happen.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And now on the 26th minute, there was a corner for CF Montreal. Jabang with his hip
I wanted to
gets
say with his arse, but okay, with his hip.
it was his hip. I don't know. Whatever. Gets the ball redirected towards Schulte, and Schulte you really saves the ball right on the crossbar. What a great save by the Kuru goalkeeper. We have to say it. Uh, had that goal counted, do you think the scoreline would have been different, Eve? At the 26th minutes, having
Uh,
Montreal pin a goal back uh,
I,
with the
you know
pressure of
how
the crowds.
you know how I feel about the hypotheticals because it
Hypotheticals.
didn't
I
happen.
know. I know.
I mean, undoubtedly, I think the crowd would have been a lot more into the game for sure.
Uh, uh,
Especially given that as the half went on, we just saw more and more chances going amiss by Montreal, and kind of I think the crew were piling the pressure on. So I can't necessarily speak for how the scoreline would have gone. I think though the ambiance would have been significantly different.
yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Elias, a few seconds later, right after that save from Schulte, uh, a big error from Lassi Lapalainen that gave the ball directly to, I think, Cristiano Ramirez. And thank God Jonathan Sirois stood tall and with a diving save, got the ball back from the Columbus Crew striker. And a few minutes later, at the 32nd minute, Sirois again with a save again on Ramirez from another cross from Julian Gressel. Uh, you look at the scoreline, we all know, Montreal lost 4-2. But if Sirois wasn't that good, we could have lost maybe 8-2, right?
Yeah, but you could also put it the other way, right? If you don't see an amazing save like that, uh off the corner and off Jabang's hip slash butt, then it's 2-1, right? So it cuts both ways, right? Both goalies put in some really impressive saves and did what they had to do for the most part. But yeah, again, Jonathan Sirois bailing out defense is not something new. We've seen it all season, so
Yeah.
it's
But
more
it's
the
a
same
defensive
again.
organization, Elias.
Exactly.
See, again, but both those chances were very
I'm sorry.
basic, rudimentary mistakes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
These are really just like
Oh my God, no! It's like
this isn't like sustained pressure and then just a failing of the way that they're set up. This is just like brain fart and then chance, which
yeah.
what happened the entire game. So
Yeah.
this was nothing new.
No, I completely agree. And that's when, after that save from Sirois, again, we saw CF Montreal getting a bit more pressure, like you said, Eve, creating half chances here and there. Nothing really, no great or big chances at that point. And that's when Usman Jabang gets beaten by Ramirez with the back heel, who gives it to Yeboah. Yeboah crosses it to Cucho Hernandez, who scores the third goal for the Crew of Columbus. Now, was that offside?
oh,
VAR said no. The
it's
referee
like
said no. And then we take a look at social media and it looks offside. But what do you guys think about all that? We all know that it happened the other way around, right? I
yep,
remember last year we
yep.
scored a goal. We were sure that it was offside and it wasn't ruled offside. I feel that the MLS is wants to get, it's a bit showtime, wants to get to see more goals, and whenever it's very close, they just tend to give the goal. I don't know what you
I
guys
don't
think
know.
about that.
We've seen it go the other way too, where it's been close and it's been called back. So, you know, I think it's tricky in these scenarios because it feels kind of random because we've seen close calls get called back and we've seen close calls get given, and we know that the way the camera angles are in MLS is like they don't have the capacity to have a camera lined up with the ball, or they don't have like the power, I guess, to bust out the line drawing to compensate for the camera angle. Um, like we do see in many other leagues that are now using VAR. So it's kind of tricky because it's like the VAR giveth and the VAR taketh away. And when we have these close calls, but there's not an exact measurement being made because we know either you're onside or you're offside. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It ends up kind of feeling arbitrary, and it doesn't really feel like the VAR contributes anything necessarily.
Yeah, it's a game of butts today. But yeah, no, you're right. No, you're completely right. It feels a bit random. It feels a bit random, and you never know exactly where it's gonna end, what kind of decision is gonna
Right.
be taken. Elias, I
Yeah.
want to hear you on that because I know you said at the beginning of the pod that it's a game that was ruled by VAR in a way. I don't
Yes.
know.
I could talk about this way too much, so I'm trying to find a way to filter my thoughts and condense them. But my big problem with offsides and VAR right now, especially in MLS, is not with the review process itself. It's with the fact that linesmen have been encouraged to let the play go because VAR will cover it.
Mm-hmm.
And that works in a league where they pull out the lines because then you know absolutely for sure, and then you can use the lines and everything like that. VAR in MLS does not bring out the lines. They kind of eyeball it because they want to say if it's clear and obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But clear and obvious is an extremely subjective word because, especially when it comes to offsides and the fact that you don't have a perfect line from the camera
Yeah.
angle, so you kind of have to twist your neck a little bit and go like, yeah, maybe worth reviewing. So that's my problem with it. So if it's a case like that where you don't plot the lines, then you have to encourage refs to call offsides immediately again. Because now all these refs, and the reason we're seeing all these VAR calls go the way of of allowing a goal is because how often do you now see a linesman call an offside right away? It happens maybe once or twice a game at the absolute most. But in before VAR, players offside, they call it even if they're 5 yards ahead. Now they let the play go on because they need to be absolutely certain, and that's something I understand. But when you don't have the lines, you need to give more power to the linesman, because then you can actually see if it's clear that the player is onside, then you let the goal stand. If it's clear the player is offside, then you let the play stand. So that's the big difference that I think MLS has from other leagues. I was I personally thought that was offside, or at least merited another look. But it is what it is. At the same time, teams will benefit from it. Teams will be hurt by it, like you said. The VAR giveth and the VAR taketh away. I think that the biggest thing I want to see is linesmen calling offsides when they see an offside now, and then relying on the eyeball of the refs in the VAR van to kind of call it like it is.
I loved the sarcastic answer from Hernan Lozada at the presser,
Yeah.
saying, you know what? At the end of the season, it all gets evened out. The calls that go against you and the call that goes for you, it gets evened out. And nobody really picked up the sarcasm.
Yeah.
But it was so sarcastic, and I was like, okay, man, this guy is gonna be fined by the MLS. So let's
He chose his words very carefully.
exactly,
Yeah.
Very carefully.
Yeah, I don't know if MLS listens to tone.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I was really laughing, and I don't think even the other journalists really realized that he was being sarcastic. I'm not really sure.
I don't know.
When I listened,
We do have a
back
comment
to it,
from
I was like,
Tate, because Tate, I think, has picked his camp in the VAR controversy.
and I agree. I agree with Tate. I
Yeah,
agree with
seemed
Tate.
pretty
I
clear and
thought
obvious.
I
Pretty
thought it
clear and
merited
obvious.
at least to look back at it. But
Yeah.
that's the problem when you have the wording and you don't pull out the lines, and the linesmen are
Yeah.
still holding their breath when it comes to raising the flag whenever they see an offside or what they think is offside.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna get calls like this all the time.
What I don't like is the clear and obvious, as you said, it's a bit subjective, and there should be a line. There should be some rules around the clear and obvious, the terms clear and obvious, because in some calls, when it's offside, they say, okay, clear and obvious, and when it's a foul, it has to be clear and obvious, and then it's not. It's just too random. It's random, and that's the name. That's the name of the pod should have been Random Night in Montreal, because
Maybe.
it was
Or
so random.
a game of
So
butts.
random.
Technically, we have an edit button, but no.
Butts and random. That's
Yeah.
that's a good name for the pod. Or random butts. Random
There you
butts.
Okay. I think we might fall down like a certain algorithm if we make that the title of the pod, and I don't know if we want to go down that road, guys.
You're right. You're
Whole new
right.
demographic.
Good. So it was halftime. Unfortunately, the scoreline was 3-0 for the Columbus Crew. Honestly, I'm just going to give my honest opinion. For me, it didn't feel like Montreal deserved a 3-0 lead, like to be led by 3-0. It didn't feel that way. Yes, Columbus was better. Were the better team.
They were ruthless,
100%.
is what they were.
100%, but not 3-0. It should have been a 1-0, maybe 2-0, but like 3-0 is a very harsh scoreline because Montreal had chances. It's not like Montreal were crushed by Columbus. That's not it. Because on the pitch, Montreal had as many chances as the Crew. It's just that unfortunately they weren't efficient enough, and the Crew was clinical, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I agree. I mean, go ahead, Elias.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they deserve to concede 3 goals. I just don't think they deserve to be down by 3. Right? If they were losing 3-1 or even 3-2, then that's a lot more fair, because you could take a look at the offside goal and be like, they shouldn't have conceded that. They shouldn't have counted. But at the same time, Columbus had no right missing some of the chances that Jonathan Sirois saved at the same time. So you get a little, you get a little. But yeah, I think that 3 goals conceded is fair given how they defended in the first half. But Yeah, I think they deserved at least one, but it doesn't matter what you deserve; it's what you have.
Exactly. And I think, this again brings us back to the discussion of, Montreal, like, like that's the thing for me, resolving the striker issue is, if no match is going to tell you when if no match is such a good representation of how desperately this striker issue needs to be resolved, for next season, if Montreal does want to contend for a playoffs position next season, then this match is it. They had excellent clinical strikers. Like you said, Elias as well. Jonathan Sirois had to make a few great saves, so it could have even been more. As well, you said, Hady by the end of the match for sure. And Montreal didn't have those players at the top of the pitch. Montreal had players who are, young and developing and coming into it, whereas Columbus has. And I understand, like, it does need a player and like a talented, like it is on a different level for sure. But sometimes you see the difference that having experienced players kind of throughout your system makes.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree. I think we need to have clinical players, not
Yes.
especially a striker. It could have been a number 10.
True.
It could have been, a wing back that's very offensive, and you have some very clinical wing backs. So, not specifically as a striker, but if
True.
it's a striker, it's just that a striker is so expensive.
They're usually, well, yeah.
Is really expensive. I think you can get, clinical midfielders for much cheaper. We'll
Maybe.
see. I don't know. I hope
Yeah.
that we're going to see a change at that time. So
Yeah.
and
Patrick does bring up a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah. Strikers do need, so Patrick brings up the point that at the same time strikers need to get a bit more service, and that is true as well, because I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, Montreal, the way their offense is set up is that the defense can't afford to make any mistakes, and the defense had no shortage of mistakes in them on Saturday against the Crew, and because chances are fewer and further between, the strikers do need to get more service, because if they're not going to be clinical, then they better have a buttload of chances.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeping on the theme of our night.
Exactly, and the choice of tactics also needed a very strong defense. So
yes,
unfortunately, it was maybe our weakest defense against the
Crew of the season, I would say.
Because of the injury of Waterman, that really didn't help. That's how slim of depth we have in central defense right now.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, this is what happened. Hernando Sada at halftime made some changes. Okay, for me, that's a big point to discuss. First of all, Lassie out for Visa, and Alvarez in for Jabang. What did you think about those changes? I wasn't too sure, because for me, I didn't think Lassie had a bad game. I think, yes, he missed a few chances, but he was creating so much. And I thought that Duke was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, I would have
liked to see maybe Duke out, Chouanière play as a number 10, and Lassie play as a left wing back. Same, that would have been my choice. And then the second thing was getting Alvarez for Jabang. I felt that was a bit, for me, harsh on Jabang, because yes, of course, he wasn't great, but he had
nobody was great in the defense.
Exactly. I think that the worst defender was George Campbell.
I agree.
He was awful in that role in the middle of the defense, and he was a lot better when he was moved to right center back in the second half, and we'll talk about that later. But for me, he was the one that deserved to be out. So, I don't know if you have anything more
I
to
wholeheartedly agree with what you said. I don't think we mentioned Bryce Duke's name once.
Yeah.
No. So that's how anonymous he was in that first half. And then obviously, we saw that the George Campbell experiment as a central defender didn't work the first time we tried it. Tried it again. Okay, it really, really, really doesn't work. But I kind of maybe understand just the thought of it being because there's literally nobody else.
Okay, I want to apologize. My son is having one of those nights. So Robbie's saying Hady's son didn't like the call either. Exactly. I'm sorry. My son is having his
He's being forced to
crisis. So
rewatch the game. That's why.
if you're hearing him, I apologize. So yeah. So Elias, what did you think about those changes from Nalazada?
I wasn't I wasn't too surprised because of what we talked about earlier. The fact that Lassie just can't go for more than an hour. I think that Elan just kind of said, you know what, we're going to get the most we're going to get out of him, and he'd rather have 45 minutes of Vilsain than just half an hour. So I kind of get that, but I am in agreement with the fact that I think Bryce Duke could have done with, maybe a switch up. Uh, I think it took too long to get Ariel Laster in there and Mathieu Choinière out of the wing back position. And as far as Usman Jaban goes, I feel bad because he did have a decent first half, but at the same time, Hernan Losada has done this several times. Whenever a defender gets a yellow card in the first half, they're usually off at halftime or after an hour. Especially if it's your first start of the season. I think his priority was getting George Campbell out to the right side, where he's obviously more comfortable, and his second half was much stronger. Um, So I think that all those changes weren't too surprising. I think he kind of gave Bryce Duke another show of confidence. I think his second half was better than his first half, but again, both were kind of just okay, which is not what you want from a lone 10. All in all, I was just happy to see Gabriel Corbo in the middle of the defense and kind of
Mm.
excited to see what Julian Alvarez, so not Julian Alvarez, could bring. Fernando Alvarez can bring. Um,
It's the
so
second
all in
time you
all,
call him Julian, by the way, but
Yeah.
I
second
didn't
time on,
mention
yeah.
anything
Yeah,
different
you got
time.
you got him on the brain.
I do.
I
But
wished we had Julian Alvarez
yeah,
with
then a
Seth
lot of these
Montreal. That would
problems
have
might
been
not be
nice.
happening.
Exactly.
But uh, but yeah, so all these the changes at half weren't too surprising to me. Um, Again, I think Lassie is a super sub and will remain as a super sub when everybody's healthy. I think that he does that much better when he's required in just little short bursts, like 45 minutes. So yeah, all in all, those substitutions weren't too surprising.
Now you look at the second half right away. Jules Anthony Vilsa's presence, he made his presence really, really worth it with the 52nd minute, a great pressure from Jules Anthony Vilsa on Rudy Camacho. And he steals the ball from him and lets it to Mahala Opoku, who scores the first goal for CF Montreal. It's 3-1. At that point of the game, did you think that it was possible to see a comeback for CF Montreal? Honestly, I didn't think I thought that Montreal had it in them. Eve, pessimistic Eve.
Well,
No.
you know how I feel. No, but I mean, I've said it a billion times. Montreal's offense doesn't score a ton of goals, and therefore, the defense is not allowed to make a ton of mistakes. I wasn't super confident, sorry, that the defense wasn't going to continue making mistakes despite the substitutions, just because Alvarez was such an unknown factor. And for anybody who had maybe caught some info on his performance, or at least his initial performance with the reserve team, it wasn't super hot. So honestly, my expectations were super tempered, or tempered. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand. But Elias, did you feel that there was something in Montreal after that goal where because the Cruz defense wasn't really strong or anything. It was shaky quite a few times. So I thought that there was a chance where we could have seen CF Montreal, tying the game up after that 1-3, and we've seen CF Montreal come out of the dressing room with a lot of very positive vibes and a lot of oomph, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised that you go into the dressing room down 3-0, especially with that third goal going in the way it did, and they came out with that much energy.
Yeah.
It looked like they really hadn't dropped their shoulders at all, which was very nice to see, but also quite surprising because any team that ends a half that way, normally you kind of drag your feet a little bit, but no, they came out like like fired out of a cannon. So kudos to them and to their staff for kind of lighting that fire under them.
That's a
But
good thing.
at the same time, I wasn't sure that they could sustain that energy without Columbus kind of just killing the momentum, which they ended up doing very efficiently a number of times. But Montreal kind of brought it back. That's the thing. So they didn't go away quietly, and they definitely gave Columbus a much bigger headache than I think they were expecting after that.
Yeah,
After that
I
first
completely
half.
agree.
So I don't think I was like, oh my god, there's a chance here.
I was hyped.
I think they needed a goal before halftime for there
Yeah,
to be a real
Mhm.
chance.
I agree.
But 3-0 down, it's a big hill to
It's a
climb.
mountain.
yeah, no, I understand, but I wasn't really like I didn't see Columbus defense. I didn't see them be very strong and dominant over CF Montreal offensive quartet. So I don't know. I thought that there was a chance somewhere, and even in the first half, as I said, we've had a lot of chances that unfortunately weren't really converted into goals. 62nd minute, Yeboah once again gets inside, crosses to Cucho. Cucho can't really control it, goes at the edge of the box, and is what that's where we see George Campbell interfere with the ball and then touches Cucho. At first, the referee says nothing, it's a throw, and then VAR calls him over. He goes and sees the replay and gives a penalty. And that's where I have a problem. Because if this is clear and obvious, for me, the offside is clear and obvious. And that's what I don't like, because this isn't clear and obvious. I rewatched the game this morning, very early, by the way. And I was still looking to be sure that this was clear and obvious. Yes, there is something, but is it as flagrant as being clear and obvious to change the decision of the referee on the pitch? For me, no way this was clear and obvious.
I thought it was a penalty until I saw the replay. So there you go.
Really?
Yes.
You thought it was a penalty, and then you saw the replay, and then
I was less convinced. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those calls that like it is not clear and obvious. If the ref would have given a penalty, there's no way VAR is overturning that. And at the same time, if the ref doesn't give a penalty, I thought there's no way that VAR is giving this penalty because yes, there is contact, and I think the ref saw that there was contact. There's no way he didn't see that there was contact, but it's clearly the ref determined that it wasn't enough to warrant giving a penalty. And I think that that's the way I saw it. That's the way a lot of people saw it. I think Eve maybe, Eve saw it after the replay, but like,
yeah.
But Eve, whenever she sees something, she takes
I assume
the pessimistic stand first.
Look, I'm telling you, it's so relieving when not the worst thing happens. That is worth it. Okay.
I agree.
At the same time, I am the pool reporter, which means whenever the press has a question for the officials, I send them. I get to ask 3 per game, right? And I haven't used it since the game against Philadelphia. That was a shit show with Chills before and the triple offside, and so. But this was a question. I asked them, what was the clear and obvious mistake that led to you reconsidering? What was the and they just didn't answer the question. They just said he kicked the
question.
No, the answer to the question was he kicked him, and that was a foul. And I was like, I saw the kick. I know that he kicked him. That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking what was the error? What was the clear and obvious error?
Well, I think they're saying that the clear and obvious error was the fact that the
ref already saw that.
Yeah,
the ref saw that, right? It's not like the ref goes, "Oh, there was contact." No, the guy was writhing around the floor. Like you could see that he obviously made contact. Just the contact wasn't enough.
Sometimes people writhe and the contact wasn't made.
When he drops like that, you have to assume that there's contact.
Yeah.
Right. And then if he did make contact, you could see that after the fact. Like you have to assume that there was
Is
contact.
it that they're saying that the obvious error was to not call the penalty despite seeing. I don't know.
I don't know, but
But
you
the
know,
thing though,
but
because the
what
obvious error, there has to be like the severity of the kick, but something like that.
But I
But
mean, for me, like if it's in a box and you make contact with a player to get the ball, like if you make contact with the man before the ball, then it's a
yes,
penalty, like any day
then
of
you
the
should
week.
have five
but the
penalties a
severity,
game.
Yeah,
of the contact also
maybe.
has to be taken into account. Because let's be real, yes, George Campbell hit Cucho's leg before he got the ball, but it's not like he took his leg out.
I don't
So I
know.
understand why the ref, if the ref had seen the contact and called a penalty, then there's
What
no way VAR is
I
overturning that
find those
because
the
there's
somewhat
way
contact.
the
controversial.
way I saw the play was that George Campbell was aiming for the ball, and at the same time he touched, not kicked, but he touched the leg of Cucho. That's how I saw it myself, right?
Like
And
simultaneously,
again,
like in the exact same second.
no.
Because
He touched
it's a judgment
he
call.
touched. Yeah, he was aiming for the ball. He touched the leg first, and then he touched the ball. But the goal, what his objective was to get to the ball and not to hit the player.
Right, but I mean, intent doesn't have much to
It-
do with it aside from like
Oh yeah, for sure,
gnarly fouls.
for sure it
But
does.
intent on a play like that
On a
doesn't
play
matter.
like that, of course.
I spoke to my brother about it. Intent in a situation like that doesn't change because at the end of the day, his attempt was for the ball and he got the player first.
Exactly. Like
My issue is the fact that it was a judgment call and refs see contact before the ball all the time and they go, "That's not enough to warrant a penalty." Totally reasonable. The thing is, I don't see how they can justify a clear and obvious error to warrant him
Exactly.
going back to the monitor, and then on top of that, having him reconsider because he says, "Oh, the contact was worse than I thought." I can't see any logical reason. I asked like that, and that's why I wanted them to answer the question, and they didn't. So that's even more frustrating.
mm.
Yeah. MLS used to do this really good series where they would break down
Oh yeah, the
controversial referee
videos,
calls,
yeah.
and then they would kind of
replay.
break it down what happened. I hope they
Yeah.
bring that back because that was honestly one of the cooler things
They
that
don't do it. I believe
for
it
us.
was.
I haven't seen it in a while. I don't know if they still do it,
They
but
just. I don't think they just broadcast it anymore. But I think it's
because
still there.
that is a very nice show of transparency, and sometimes they even say mea culpa, but more often than not, it's more to just let the fans
A lot of the
into
time, yeah, they'll put out
the
a
decision
statement when they
making
realize they
process
really
of.
screwed up.
So I really hope that something happens and we get a better idea of
Nobody's
what
nothing's
happened in the
gonna happen.
VAR
You all
booth.
know.
Oh yeah, inside video review still exists.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really do hope that
I
we
just on their website.
get a better
Instant
idea
replay.
There's so many episodes.
Yeah.
of the decision making
stop.
process for both those goals because I think that I'd like to kind of understand
usually,
what they were talking about.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one last thing also, if you said maybe the referee didn't think that he touched the player, if it was that, at first you said maybe he didn't realize there was contact, and then he realized that there was contact, so that's why he called the penalty. If there wasn't any contact, he should have given a yellow card to Cucho Hernandez.
Agree. For embellishment.
So he knew.
No, simulation. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, exactly, for simulation. So he knew there was contact. So the contact was there.
That is a good point.
He judged that it wasn't penalty. So whatever. For him, it was a clear and obvious mistake. I think all three of us don't really agree. But you know what? It was 4-1 at that point. But again, CF Montreal didn't really put their head down. They really tried to score more goals. And it happened. And on the 68th minute, after a corner, Matko Miljevic gets the ball to Jules-Anthony Vilsan, who scores his first goal for Montreal. It was 2-4 CF Montreal at that point, reducing the deficit to 2. It was good to see Jules-Anthony Vilsan score his first goal for CF Montreal, get an assist also on the first goal. Great reaction from the young lad after being dropped from the starting 11. After such a performance from Jules-Anthony Vilsan, is he now the first choice striker along Mahala Opoku up front?
I still think in ideal circumstances, if there were a more experienced striker available, i.e. a Ramon Kyoto in, good form and in good relations with the club, I still think obviously he would still be the starting striker. However, in current circumstances, I have to think yes.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It seems as though they're getting onto a good wavelength. Fingers crossed. I mean, we saw the difference when 04 came in for Opoku. Things went to die basically at his feet, as they often have, unfortunately. So yeah, I feel like the two most adept strikers available to Montreal right now are Opoku and Vilsain.
Interesting.
So yeah, I feel like they got to start.
If you had, maybe Toy, or if you had, forget Kyoto. We all know that Kyoto has to be a starter if he's available. But if Toy was here, would he be?
He is here.
No, he was injured.
He was available midweek.
He's not injured anymore. Yeah, he's available.
He's not injured anymore, so he came back. Okay, he was injured before, so okay, good.
I don't know when.
Yeah, he was injured before. He just came back to training. So do you think that Toy would have been that striker, that experienced striker next to Mahala?
I mean, yes and no. I think that it really does boil down. Like, yes, you could look on paper and see, like, yeah, these two strikers complement each other, and the way Toy plays and the way Mahala plays, there could be something really interesting there. But at the same time, my favorite thing about Vilsain and Opoku is that they actively look for one another, and except for that one time on Saturday that Vilsain could have squared the ball to Opoku.
Mm-hmm.
And he chose to shoot. He was gonna shoot, and then like halfway through his swing, he was like, I'll pass it. So it was like both and neither, a pass and a shot. Besides that, they're always looking for one another, and that's the first thing you want to see is when not only do two strikers get along, but they're actively looking to play together. And they're giving each other the ball, which is more important than how complementary two strikers are. Because at the end of the day, they both like to have the ball. They both like to play together. And when you include Bryce Duke in that, when he's in form and he's confident, that does have the makings of something very interesting, given how young and how they're already all clicking, despite being from three clubs. There were three different clubs at the beginning of the season, and they've been together for, a month? All of them. So that does fill me with a lot of excitement about the what they could do in the future. But at the same time, they're still young and they still need somebody to learn from, right? And yes, Mason Toy is more experienced, but Mason Toy is also what? He's 25? He's 26?
Yeah.
Like he's his mid-20s, right? Mid to late 20s.
I think 25.
So Chidonzo 4 is 23.
He's 24.
24.
Toy is 24. He's going to be 25 in October.
Right. So Nusi is, 21, 22. Chidonzo's the same age. So look, besides Omar Kyoto, there's no experienced striker that they can kind of learn off of. So they're kind of just learning and improving as they go. So I think that with that being said, there's a lot of upside and there's a very high ceiling on this group. But if they're always being thrust in these
they have no guidance.
Ready for exactly. They don't have a Gandalf to kind of guide them through this journey. And
oh my god, I think I'd even take a Samwise Gamgee.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? So seeing Kyoto back in training isn't just exciting from an on-field perspective, but you could see the relationship he had with people like Bryce Duke, with people like Sunusi, with people like Chonzo 4, and they were talking about at the beginning of the season how excited he is not just to be with the group, but also to help the younger guys get with the program. So the fact that he's back again from what 4 months now, away from the club.
Yeah.
This is good. I wish it had happened earlier, than in March time.
Yeah. And now, right after, there was just a few half chances or chances for CF Montreal. The end of the game was mostly Montreal way with the 70th minute. Vilsain missing the top corner. Salipa shot saved at the 86th minute. Lassiter getting on the ball also at 91st minute. Of course, the game finished 2-4. With the Columbus Crew taking the 3 points from Montreal in Stade Saputo. The only positive thing that we can get out of this game was that CF Montreal still won the second half 2-1.
Oh my God, Hady!
You have Yeah.
The response in the second half was very impressive.
Okay, there we go. I can say it. Yeah, I can swallow it better if you phrase it like that rather than saying they won the second half.
But that's the way they phrased it.
Somebody
Like they were
said that to
talking
me.
about how they wanted to go out in the second half and
And
at
win the
least
second half.
win the second half.
For sure. For sure. That's how.
That's what Vincent said. I believe was about getting out there and
Oh
at
no,
least
that's my
outscoring
least
each-
favorite take. Oh my, I think that is my least favorite take actually. Is when you say that you won a half because you didn't win the game, and I'm like, no,
small victories.
No, it's not because of
like
that. You had an awful showing in the
it was
first
dismal.
half, right? So at least after an awful showing, let's start with at least winning that half, and if we can do more, that's even better. But you already know that at 3-0 at halftime, 95% of the time you lost the game, right? So at least by winning the half, you at least brought your way back into the midst of what, it's just a half, it wasn't good, let's move on, we are able to do better like we've showed in the second half. That's the only positive thing I can get. We do have a question from Robbie. How often do we score 3 or more? Not a lot
this season. I can think of 2 occasions.
Minnesota, that's it.
Oh, 4. Yep. Okay, 3 occasions of Philadelphia, Toronto, Minnesota. Can't think of another match where they scored 3 goals or more. They have not scored
Vaughan.
5, I can tell you that.
Vaughan.
No, Vaughan, they only scored 2.
Oh, they won 2-0. That's true. I thought they won 2-0.
Yeah.
No, that's 3 games this year.
I'm bringing you the stats here.
Likewise, I'm checking.
Stats. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now for you, Robbie.
A whole lot of tools, though. A whole lot of scoring twice, but no.
So
not even that much scoring twice. There's a lot of ones.
We did score against Philadelphia 3 goals. Then we scored 3 goals against Minnesota. We scored 4. That was a 4-0. So only twice.
And
we scored in Toronto 3-2.
Yes.
3-2. Yeah.
Yeah, we scored in Toronto 3-2. So it happened 3 times. So it's
offensive powerhouse.
Out of.
Now, Chan saying that Toy just got dropped out of.
That was the case. I know midweek for sure.
Exactly. So yeah, and of course Tate saying expected goals were 2.0, 1.9. So again, on the chances were there for CF Montreal, as we can see in the expected goals statistics. So that's what happened for CF Montreal. I think we have a second segment, and that I know, Chan, you said that Inter Miami only 8 points behind CF Montreal, behind 9th place with 2 games in hand. Let's take a look at the standings right now to see exactly what's going on. So right now, CF Montreal is still 8th with 35 points. There's still 7 games left for CF Montreal. DC United, who crushed the Fire of Chicago 3-0.
4-0.
4-0, yeah, sorry. Is 9th with 33 points, same amount of games played. Chicago is just behind with 32 points again, with 27 games played. Charlotte, who was able to get a draw from Nashville, is 11th with 31 points with 26 games. So they have a game in hand. So they could be at 34 if they win that game. New York City FC has played 1 more game than CF Montreal, is at 30 points. The Red Bulls with 27 games, also with 29 points. Inter Miami with 25 points in 25 games. So they have 2 games less than Montreal. So if they win those 2 games, that at 31 points, if you can show me the standings again, if you don't mind. And of course, Toronto FC, because we have to say it, dead last with 22 points and 27 games played. The playoff race right now for the 8th and 9th position, is it possible to rule out any team between the 8th position and the 14th positions for those 2 spots?
I mean, if you look at, I would say overall form for some of the teams, you don't really feel like either of the New Yorks has it in them. Just if you look at their overall form, New York, before beating Montreal midweek, they had won in like 18 games, and that other win was also against Montreal. So Montreal is basically like solely responsible for 20% of the points that that team has. So I kind of feel like neither of the New Yorks has it in them for form. Obviously, Miami, I'm not going to spend any time there. I think it's pretty obvious. Everyone else has already talked it to death.
The obvious they're going to make the playoffs.
That's the overwhelming sentiment. So
yeah, but that's your sentiment too.
I don't.
You don't care.
Not really. No. I don't. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You're allowed.
I'm a one club woman.
You're allowed. You're allowed. You're allowed.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel somewhat vindicated now seeing DC creep into ninth because I said they were Montreal's technically their biggest threat.
Elias, do you think we can rule out any team until the 14th? Honestly, I look at all the teams, and for me, it's impossible to rule out anyone right now. With 7 games left for CF Montreal, I think everybody has a chance of making those final 2 spots. It's as simple as that. I don't think any team is able to get to the 7th spot or
I agree there. Yeah.
So I think the top 7 are there already, and it's not going to they're maybe going to change, swap positions
within themselves.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Nashville's been very disappointing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they made their life a lot more difficult than need to be. I don't think they're in any kind of danger.
It's just such a good squad.
I don't think they're in any kind of danger, but they've been very disappointing of late. And they've been very hot and cold. So I think that they have the potential to make their lives difficult. I don't think they're gonna. But I think if any team up there is going to maybe just like get a little close to the 8th seed, it's Nashville. But besides that, I think I kind of agree with Eve that NYCFC and Red Bulls are kind of they're there, but they're not really there. I think
they're having very off years. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that just the fact that they've been so spotty performance-wise, and that they don't really have a super easy schedule for the last 7 games or 6 games in NYCFC's case, just makes their job that much harder. I think that if they had better positioning, maybe they can kind of oops their way, but the fact that they have to climb over like 5 teams to make it into the playoffs does kind of work against them.
Yeah, if you look at Nashville, sorry, I just wanna go back on that. That lost the League's Cup final against Inter Miami. Yes, they had a very bad game, losing 4-0 in Atlanta, but then they were able to get a draw from Miami, 0-0, and then they got a draw against Charlotte at home. And Charlotte is not a small team; it's a team that's fighting for a playoff spot. So I don't think they were so that bad as you said.
I mean, they have 1 win in their last.
I think for the standards that
MLS
Nashville
games.
has. I think it's just lower than we were.
They're going to make the playoffs, and I'd be floored if they don't. I think the only difference is that of all the teams that are above Montreal right now, the one that's most likely to slip up and even come close to falling into that play-in spot is Nashville.
Okay. Yeah. No. Fair. For Inter Miami, I agree with you. I think also that they're too far behind to grab a playoff spot. They're too far behind. I'm sorry. They are too far behind. I don't see them get a playoff spot. They still have, playing Atlanta in Atlanta, playing Orlando in Orlando, playing Chicago in Chicago, and then playing at home.
That's a huge challenge. Sorry to Chicago. I hope we don't have any listeners.
Do you remember the field in Chicago?
Oh, it's ugly as sin.
Yeah. So that's why for me it's a challenge. That's why for me it's a challenge.
I was thinking of
not the squad. Team. No. It's always hard to go play in Chicago, and we've seen it.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. Yeah.
And then they're playing a U.S. Open Cup final on the 27th of September against the Dynamo. I don't know. And then they're playing 2 games back to back. First of all, against Charlotte, and then in Charlotte and Charlotte might be the one between them and the playoffs. I don't know. I don't think they have a very easy schedule, Inter Miami, and I
At the
don't
same
think
time,
that.
though, at the same time, LAFC, Cincinnati, Nashville, and Philadelphia and Dallas are all away games that Miami walked into and came out with a win, even if it was on
Okay,
penalties.
I understand.
These games are not away games anymore. It's like 50-50 with Messi
Yeah,
fans.
but dude, one sec. You have 6 games between
Yeah.
September 20th and 7th of October. In 17 days, they have 6 games with the cup final. So your players, the ex Barca players, are not going to be able to play 6 games,
With the
90 minutes
travel involved,
with the travel
the sheer
involved.
distance in MLS is greater than the
Exactly.
distances in Europe. Yeah.
Exactly. Now they're all in the East, thank God for them. But maybe they're gonna win 4. I don't see them winning all 6 of them. And right now, even a draw is a bad result for their playoffs hopes, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So let's wait and see. We'll see. It will be a great story if they're able to do it. And we've seen, DC United do that with Rooney a few years ago, where they were last in the standings in the Eastern Conference and was able to come back and get up to a playoff spot and then lose in the first round of playoffs. But it was a
That
great
means if
story.
Miami doesn't make it, then Rooney is the GOAT and Messi is finished.
Oh God.
No, but you know what? It's gonna be fun. I think
Yeah.
it's fun to see all that. I think CF Montreal being a part of that indirectly is gonna be really fun also. I think for Montreal, Eve, do you agree that they only need to win their home games? If they win their own home games, they'll make the playoffs. Do you agree with that?
Only
5
their
left.
home games.
They've got 5 left.
They got 4 home games
4
left.
left.
Yeah.
They have, I'll tell you,
Cincy.
they have Chicago first, then Cincy, then Houston, and then Timbers.
Houston is good this year. Cincinnati is good this year.
But if they win their 4 home games,
okay, I don't think that's going to happen. But
if
okay, fine. If okay, you would think that you would 12 points. 12 points is like it puts them like right on the bubble for me. Probably. But like a 9th place. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's as committal as I'm willing to be, probably. 47 points. Yeah.
Elias, you agree that it's all played at home for CF Montreal? Those away games are not really important, in my opinion. Do you agree with that, or you don't?
Yeah, well, we talked about it at the episode after the Leagues Cup, where we kind of previewed the last 11 games. I said they have to win. All they have to do is win their home games. So 6 of the 5, 6 of the 11. And then even if you pick up a point here, there, whatever. But 6 of the 11 left, and
but we lost 1. But we won. We won in Toronto.
Won in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
That's why. So the win in Toronto is supposed to make up for anything you drop at home. So now
one match.
Now your safety net is gone, right? So you have to win out the season, or you pick something else up on the road. But
interesting.
When all of them at home, and stupider things have happened, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's reasonable to expect that of them. I think it's a big ask, but it's the playoff times. You have to have big asks.
Robbie is a big E fan now. Big E fan with big
I love it. I feel like I'm in a little echo chamber.
And Tate saying Chicago game is huge on the 16th, and I completely agree. I think
I said it last week. It's a 6-pointer.
Yeah, it's going to be a 6-pointer. So let's wait and see. Of course, we have the international break now with, of course, Canada not having any games planned for the international window.
Twirling our thumbs.
So we'll see about next week's episode, what we're going to do. We'll talk about that a bit later.
So our long quiz.
Let's wait and see. I'm pretty sure there's going to be things to talk about. But
Better hope
Elias,
so.
you prepared social media. So
Yes, I did.
let's move on to social media right away.
Alrighty. Alrighty.
Yeah. So this is from Simple Guy, and it says 2 weeks ago, we're good, and we have 6 Quebecers on the field. Everything's great. Since yesterday, we've been rotten. It's all Losada's fault, Ronald's fault, Joyce Saputo. Very bipolar. Do you think that?
Welcome to Twitter.
Welcome to Montreal sports fan Twitter.
No,
But yeah,
no.
do you
Welcome to
think
Twitter.
that the
That's
fan
simple as
base
that.
is becoming a bit dramatic with
Becoming?
especially the last few weeks with everything going on? Do you think they've been
Elias.
extra dramatic with this playoff race?
No.
Elias, we cannot talk about the fan base by just looking at Twitter. Twitter is not the fan base. Twitter
Twitter's not
is
the fan
Twitter fan base. You know, the fan base is not like there's maybe half of the fan base that doesn't have Twitter. So
At least
maybe
half.
more than half, even,
Way more.
right? Maybe
I don't know.
70% of the fan base. I don't know, but a lot of people that I talk to at games, they never go on Twitter. So yes, Twitter is
Must be nice.
Yeah, Chan saying Twitter is the war, guys.
I
It's
know,
like,
I
no,
know
we're
it.
gonna call it Twitter.
I'm broken. I
No,
can't call
exactly.
it anything
I'm
else.
too
Also,
old.
like,
I'm not good with change.
I feel like
So-
if we say X like too many times in a row, then I'm also concerned we're gonna get picked up by some kind of algorithm.
I agree too. Hey man, algorithm that should go in the title too.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I don't think that of course on Twitter it's always bipolar. It's always been that way, and not.
I would
only
say
with
social media in
Montreal.
general.
Exactly, and not only with CF Montreal. I know with Marseille it's always the same thing. Whenever we lose, it's like the
All
end
sports
of the
teams, I'm
world.
inclined to say.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
Twitter is no.
Same crap, different day, kind of for me.
Exactly. When we lose on Twitter, I just don't go on Twitter. I just do whatever content I do usually, press conferences and everything. I answer to the people that answer me, and that's it. I just don't go anymore on Twitter because it's too depressing. So when we win, it's nice. It feels that we're gonna win the World Cup. So the World Cup, the Club World Cup, right? So yeah, because of course, we're gonna win the Champions League. It's gonna be easy. But we're gonna win the World Cup after the Club World Cup because we know we're better than the Real Madrid, right? So
Evidently.
So yeah, this is Twitter, man. This is Twitter. This is how it is.
No, normal stuff. Another day at the office. Alrighty, shall we move on to tweet number 2?
The next one, yes. This is from Eric B. King. This is
I
about
love
Mo
Eric.
Farsi's cameo at the end of the game. Yeah, well, this is not the same Farsi as when I was doing summaries for PLSQ. So we all saw Mohamed Farsi, who had just a little
blow up.
It was like a little 7-minute cameo, including out of time. What did you make of it? Because we don't really get to talk about it because it wasn't really anything. He didn't really do anything crazy. He didn't score no chances. But what did you think seeing him out there, and how does it make you feel seeing a Canadian product, a Montreal product that didn't really get a chance in the club, go out there and he's living his best life now?
Wow, like number 1, where were you, Montreal? Number 2, I think I'm always happy to see a local Quebec player find success. I'm a little bit salty when it's with another team in MLS for sure, but always happy to see a local player. Like he's gone through so many steps. He's gone through PLSQ. He's gone through CPL. He's gone through MLS Next Pro, and now he's playing with the first team regular minutes. So full credit to Mo Farsi for me. Honestly, nothing but good to say.
It makes me angry.
The same?
No, it makes me angry.
It
makes me angry because
Channel
this guy loved CF Montreal. And when I say loved, I've seen his Instagram stories when he was at PLSQ, always with a Montreal shirt. He really wanted to play for that club. And the club snubbed him quite a few times. When he was at the CPL, we said it here on The Ball Is Round. We said that he deserved a chance with CF Montreal.
Agree.
and he didn't get that chance.
Nope.
And now he
And
went
it's
to
Montreal's
Columbus Crew.
loss.
He went to Columbus Crew. He played with the MLS, the second league,
MLS Next Pro.
MLS Next Pro League. He was the best player maybe in the league altogether, and now he's in the starting most of the time in the starting
He
11
regularly
with
starts, yeah.
the Crew of Columbus, and he was called up to Canada. He rejected the call up because he's still thinking maybe he's going to represent Algeria. We talked about it also on the ball this round. For me, this is it's comparable to Max Crepeau being sold for 50,000. It's comparable. This is how angry I am when I see Mohamed Farsi be so good with the Crew. But of course, I'm happy for him. He's a great lad, great guy. I met him quite a few times, and he's really, really nice guy.
LA wouldn't have lost last night if Crepeau was playing.
I don't know. I didn't watch. I'm clearly not like a good general soccer fan. Also,
you're not on the Messi hype train.
No, I'm not. Sorry.
Clearly.
I'm sorry. I'm not.
No need to apologize.
I don't know. Maybe I should hang up my microphone.
It's a Montreal podcast, not a Miami podcast.
Okay. Oh my God! Throw my words. My heart is so warm. Also, no, I can't do West Coast games too late.
That too was late as hell.
Even if
started at 10 o'clock.
Even if the ghost of Pele was playing, I don't think I'd have it in me.
She needs her beauty sleep.
I think it's more so. I don't know. Rest of the dead.
Okay, good. Moving on. Next tweet.
Next tweet. Yes, this is from Mathieu Charon. I won't comment, but every time I see this kind of thing since the beginning of the week, I feel like running into something. And this is a quote from Wilfried Nancy saying, I'm very happy at Columbus. The project is clear. So is the vision. Do you think this was a veiled shot at the club? Do you think it's just him expressing how much he enjoys working in Columbus? And more importantly, how do you guys feel about seeing Wilfried Nancy come back? It's kind of like seeing your ex come back with, a new partner, looking great, living great, having, just enjoying life. How did you guys feel seeing Wilfried back?
I don't date people, so I don't have feelings. I
agree. She doesn't have feelings. That I can.
My only feeling is rage and pessimism. I don't know if that counts as a feeling. My only feeling is rage. Basically, most insaltiness. For me, like, I am, like I said, I'm very much like I focus on one thing and one thing only. And so whether it's a player, whether it's a coach, when they leave, I'm like, okay, sayonara, goodbye. Like, don't let the door hit you on the way out, kind of. Unless they get traded and like there's extenuating circumstances, like say when Laurent Simon got traded and that was really ugly and uncool, or like Max Crepeau, another similar situation. But like when somebody chooses to leave, I'm kind of like, yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out, like whatever. So for me, like I didn't have a ton of emotion, honestly, with Wilfried Nancy's return. I don't know, I compartmentalize really well.
For me, I'm passionate. Everybody knows, and. Yeah, I just wanted to beat him. I really wanted to beat him. I wanted CF Montreal to beat him to show him that this is what you're missing, man. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. It makes me angry. I love the guy, of course. He's really nice. I loved his presser. I had a lot of pleasure watching him coach our team. But now he's the enemy. He's not with our team anymore. So, let him throw jabs at the club and throw comments at the club.
For me, it's just not a good look if that's what you're going to
do. For me, yeah, he feels a bit sour. And for me, you know what? At the end of the day, you took a decision and, of course, yeah, maybe the club wasn't cool with you, but at the end of the day, I'm still a fan of the club. So, sorry about that, but good for you. You won the game. Now, let's turn the page.
Right.
Agreed. On to the next tweet.
Alrighty.
Yes. This is from John Molinaro. John Herdman led a cultural revolution of sorts when he was in charge of both Canadian national teams. Can he do it again at TFC. Club management is banking on it. We would not go the whole episode with not talking about this. It's
No,
the
of course
biggest,
not.
national team. Right now, Toronto's season is essentially done. I think we can all agree
Oh,
on
it's
that.
over.
What would constitute a successful end of this season for John Herdman? And what do you think management banks on it can mean a lot of things? What, if you're the TFC management, what do you want to see from John Herdman leading into 2024?
Listen,
I'm taking my hands off this question.
Yeah, I know you don't like to talk about Toronto. For me, it's a team like another, unless they play us. So John Herdman, I think, is a great hire for TFC. I'm gonna say it because TFC has great potential, has great players, great talented players.
They stopped
And
signing
what's
them off.
missing in that team is a leader of men that puts them in the right direction and lets them look at
Maybe put
all
some of them in
together
their place.
in the right direction, the same direction. And this is where John Herdman is great.
Yeah.
He's a leader of men. He's not a tactical coach. He's not good tactically, but leading men and making them believe in a story, as in a scenario, making them believe they can win. That's his strength. That's what he can do, and that's what he can bring. This is what he's gonna do with TFC, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna be successful. Unfortunately for us, now his first step is gonna be exactly what he did when he took over the men's national team in 2018. He went into Toulon in the Toulon tournament. He took a bunch of young players from all across the world that could be Canadian internationals. In those young players, you had Theo Corbiano, you had Jonathan David that nobody knew back then. You had all those kinds of players, Liam Miller, that was part of all that. Of course, some players that we loved in Montreal, like Daniel Kinumbe and those players that were part of that Toulon squad. And he started to build something from scratch. And that's exactly what he's going to do with Toronto. He's going to take a look at the whole, it's going to be his lab experiment right now. He's just going to try players at different positions, see who he can rely on, and choose those players that are on his bandwagon already, and just make them a part of the squad of next year. All those that aren't gonna follow whatever he's trying to put together are gonna be bye, let's go, move on. Sorry, Eve, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add. If I recall correctly, he's not taking this role until October 1st. So for him, it's gonna be the very end of the season.
Yeah.
That he's taking on. So he's not gonna have necessarily much, if any, involvement through the month of December, because I believe he's working with Canada Soccer for transitioning, whatever his roles and responsibilities would have been during the month of September and October. And so I don't think he's gonna. I don't think this season is really going to be anything to judge him by.
Yeah, he's still gonna have a couple of games to try something.
I suppose, yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
On to our final tweet. I believe, yes, this is from James Kello. I'm not so secretly hoping Canada Soccer appoints Smirniotis to the Canadian men's national team. He crushes it, taking the team to new heights, in the process proving the necessity and the value of the player-coach referee pathway provided by the CPL, and hence the CSB deal. What do you guys think of Bobby Smirniotis? Do you think that would be an interesting replacement? If not, who would you, or if not, if you don't have anybody specific in mind, what kind of coach would you like to see replace John Herdman?
Carlo Ancelotti. I will die on this hill.
I know.
He accepted the Brazil job already, so
he can
Are
always
you sure
turn
about
back.
that?
He can
I'm
always,
sure.
it'll be like a rom-com, and
He's-
Canada Soccer will
It was,
go
very
chase after
recent.
him at the airport and be like, "I want you back." Be like, "Okay," and then hook up the cat.
I don't think so.
he's gonna be in charge of the national team at next year Copa America. Brazil chairman says Carlo Ancelotti will take
So
over.
Canada beats Brazil
That's
at the
on
Copa
Fox
America.
It's not official. It's not official
Canada
until
versus Brazil at the Copa America. Winner keeps Ancelotti.
Okay, I'd be down for that. It's not official till he's on the sideline, or at
It
least
is official
holding one
already.
of those scarves.
It is
Like
official already. But yeah. So honestly, to answer your question, for me, it's either or of two profiles. Either you take a Canadian coach that knows the system inside out, like Bobby Spagnuolo, someone been um, that's been a part of Canada soccer,
Forever.
yeah, forever, and has was the owner of Sigma FC, did everything in Canada already, and has extensive experience also abroad because he was coach at Olympiacos with the at the youth level also. Uh, for me, I would love this kind of manager, Bobby Siniardis. He's very good also tactically. He has clear values, a clear formation, tactical, very good technical knowledge also. So I would love someone like Bobby Siniardis. You either take this kind of coach or you go with a very, very experienced coach. And when I say very experienced coach, maybe, I remember when Brazil took over Mario Zagallo the second time, he was in his 70s already. And he didn't have, of course, couldn't really be there for too long, but he gave his knowledge to the new generation of Brazil players. Uh, that's a bit what I would do if I was Canada Soccer. So maybe, I thought about a guy like Fabio Capello, maybe, who could, come back from retirement and help a team like Canada. Someone that's a bit older, but has tons of experience, has very good tactical knowledge, and can also control those very good players that we have with Canada Soccer. Because at the end of the day, they're very young players that are very successful, and you need someone that has the aura to control their reactions, to control the way they play, and he needs to have like some sort of authority. And having a big CV is something very interesting. So it's either or someone from Canada or a very high profile older coach that has tons of experience. That's what I would take, in my opinion.
Eve, what about you? What kind of direction do you want Canada Soccer to go in?
Okay, I'm still convinced that there's hope for Carlo Ancelotti. I will die. I will just go to my grave. I know you sent me the link, Hady, and I'm just refusing to open it, okay? Until we see him on the side. But
if it's not Carlo Ancelotti,
okay.
What other options do you think Canada should pursue?
Bobby Smirniotis is definitely a good shout. He's obviously, I think, a great motivator of his players. We've had some Forge players on here who have said such wonderful things about him as a coach. I think he is a really exciting candidate. I don't think Mauro Biello is a good long-term candidate, just to be clear. That's the problem, is there's not like a ton of candidates available right now who, when I look at them, I'm like, like I can't name a name of a coach who's available right now. I was even looking one day and was like, And then, of course, I don't want to assume that Canada Soccer is going to be able to seduce anybody who's under contract, because as well, obviously, there are proper steps that you have to take in those cases. So for me, I think Bobby Smirnos is a lovely candidate. I mean, I would have not minded at all seeing him in Montreal. Obviously, that didn't wind up being the case anytime. Chan said Lopetegui, former Wolverhampton Wanderers coach. That I feel is too much outside of Canada Soccer's budget, I suspect. And also, like, he left Wolves basically because Wolves weren't giving him like what he wanted with players and stuff like that. And I have a sneaking suspicion that Canada Soccer probably has fewer resources than the Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Probably true.
Probably, EPL team, catastrophic federation. So a girl can dream. That would be super cool. But yeah, I figure if Carlo Ancelotti is a pipe dream, then so is Lopetegui.
Yeah, it's still possible. Let's wait and see. Maybe Angelotti, but all reports are saying he's gonna be with Brazil next year. So,
and also, I'm like super joking. I don't think he would ever truly wind up with.
but he said don't
said if
forget
it's
that
not
his
Madrid,
wife is
it's Canada.
Canadian, right?
Yeah.
So his
So
wife is Canadian from
there's
Vancouver.
a chance. So you're saying there's a chance.
There's always a chance.
That's
but
all. That's
I
all
doubt
I
it.
need to
I mean,
hear.
there's a chance
That's
I win the
all
lottery
we
doubt it.
needed
tomorrow.
to hear.
I doubt it very much. Or Holy Gale saying Ted Lasso. That's a possibility too.
I could see them trying to pull some sort of gimmick like that. Oh my god.
Oh no.
They're so
That's
unpopular
it.
right now.
That's it for social media. Thanks a lot, Elias, for those nice tweets and for discussing them. Thanks, Eve, for being here with all your pessimistic views. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Oh my god, Hady, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm maybe over pessimistic tonight.
Nah, you're just Eve. It's okay. So, guys, I hope you guys loved our episode and loved our content. Always remember, our content is always going to be free. If you are interested, though, in helping us growing the content, you can become a Patreon. On our Patreon page, you can find all the information on our Twitter page, our X page, if you want to. And that's it for today. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Ball is Round.